Hello, welcome to the Day Cadet Joy Communicates. Today, my sister has been wanting me to channel her for some time and allow her to not only tell her story about her passing, but what she found afterwards. It took a while for them to convince me to channel. I kept my spiritualism very close to my vest, and I had gotten into a big habit of doing so. But they wanted me to start sharing. They wanted me to start sharing my experience and let them also channel through me. So tonight it's my sister. She's been wanting to do this for quite some time. Talk about what she found after she passed. So I guess I'll just step out of the way because I don't submerge like a lot of channelers. I don't know if I know how. I always hear what they're saying. So I will do my best to not interrupt my sister as she's telling her story. You know, it's not really that easy for me to talk about, like the death part, because I know that it hurt a whole lot of people. By the way, I'm doing this. I know it hurt a whole lot of people, a whole lot of people. And I understand that, people may not understand that I'm not actually a child on the astral realm. I am an angel. I know that Angie did not. And so she didn't speak to me in the way that she spoke to my grandpa when he passed, or my mom when she passed, or Cecil's dad when he passed, uh, or any number like my brother when he passed. Because she, in her head, couldn't yet like separate the fact that I was four when I passed and my communication skills at the time. So the most I would get was like, I love you, Joy. And then I get to hear her talk to my mom or the others about me. And that was actually what was happening when I first spoke to her. Angie, she was going through the remembrances because of physical logical change. And she calls them remembrances. It's where she started getting visions and spontaneously remembering her past lives. She didn't figure that she needed it unless she needed it, and it would come up. She needed it. And we were doing this as an angelic group to help try to figure out from whence stemmed her stress pattern of starving herself, of anorexia. It's a stress pattern. Um, so it really began in earnest as that. But one day she was talking about my dad, and they asked her to submerge a little bit so she could rest because her body wasn't sleeping well, her mind wasn't resting, and because of some of the chemicals in her condition, she was um, dealing with a lot of feeling of catastrophe. Like she even came up with something to help her with that. The sky is not falling me, it's not here near. I will not allow sonar to make me feel fear. Um, but I think she's doing a pretty good job with that. But okay, I guess I have been avoiding talking about the death itself because it was very hard on the parents and my family. But I'll tell you, it wasn't hard on me. I had we have hours when we come into life, and there will be specific times when we may have an opportunity to leave the world. Coil. A lot of people have a few. Those near-death experiences are some of the things that you may you may find it was an hour that they chose not to take. So I was going over through my review, and when you do it, you don't do it as like a child. You do it with your angelic knowledge of what you're trying to achieve. with your life, and I decided that it wasn't going to be possible to achieve my main goal. So I decided that I would take my first out. My first out was a drowning. Now, I did not drown, I did not feel any of that. My body drowned. I stepped out of my body. That's how I remember it. I stepped out of my body, and they, the angels, put the body in the water because I was not, and where that it can be found. A beautiful angel, one of my uncles, um, offered to find the body so that no one, as an angel, of course, so that no one would not know what happened to me because that's worse, you know. So, so I stepped out of my body. They put it in the water, and a little bit later, my uncle found it, and I remember seeing the guys through beside my sister first. There was a circle, and it was my brother, my sisters, uh, Angie, Dixie, and Chris, and I think Angie was in the middle of Dixie and Chris. They were holding hands, and then there was a bunch. Somebody was on Dixie's side, somebody was on Chris's side, and there was a lot of chaos there because I had gone missing, and then there was first one and two, then three, and I think it ended up being about four lifeguards that worked on me. But I wasn't there. They were going to get me back. I had decided not to come back. And I remember when we sleep, we would dream together. Me, my older sister, sometimes my brother, and Angie. My two older sisters, of course, Angie was older than me too, but Dixie and Angie and Chris and I would dream together a lot of times. Sometimes not Chris, because he'd go off adventure and doing his own thing. He didn't really necessarily want to stay doing, looking at the Mason's caves or whatever it was we had decided to do that night together. And I remember that it was me, Dixie, Chris, and Angie. I don't think Anna was there. She was a newborn. She was focusing most of her power on, you know, being an infant. But it was me, Dixie, Chris, Angie, and well, Bubba was missing. He was mad. He was like fighting it because we were really close, and he was gonna miss me, and so he was pretty upset. And then my older sister was more like, "Oh, I'm sorry you couldn't do what you set out to do. It's okay. Catch you later." And Dixie walked on, but Angie and I, we slept together. So we often dreamed together, no matter what the others were not to do. And so she's sitting there patiently, just listening to me. And she goes, "I'm sorry it went like that." I'm like, "Uh-oh, you might want to also that camera shut." She said, "I'm sorry it went like that." And now hold on just a minute to see if I can get that. I don't know where. The car is full. Anyway, so I will continue here. So, so we had we were set up to where um excuse me, I lost my train. Yes, so Angie's just sitting there. She she didn't go anywhere. She was just patient, and you know, she's sorry um that it couldn't follow through, and she's just waiting. And I was told her that the one thing that bummed me out is that I wasn't going to get to see like up close and personal, like because it's different when you're on the astral realm and you're dealing with, because you're not just dealing with, like if you go back into your all in all, you're not just dealing with the one emissary or the one life that you're dealing with. You're dealing with everything you've done, you know, and that's a lot. Like that's a lot, and trying to keep track of, you know, my sister, both my sisters and my brother, and trying to do that from the astral realm seemed daunting. It really just seemed daunting. So I was like, I just wish that there was a way that I could stay. I don't want to be a ghost, but I wish there was a way that I could stay, like in my knowledgeable form. Now, um, I don't think that Angie at the time understood like the knowledgeable form thing. There's only so far in the deed that we were at the time. But she says, "Well, why don't you stay with Jessica?" I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Why don't you stay with Jessica? You know, Mama and Paul. Well, Mama, both of the Mamas especially, well, our grandmothers. And Mama is the way we call them down south, but." Uh, the mamas were teaching us that Jesus lived in your heart, right? That Jesus, he lives in your heart. There's a space for him there. So she was gung ho and adamant that she's like, but Jessica, Jesus wouldn't uh mind you staying there. You're small. You know, surely love, doesn't mind joy, you know. So she was like, why don't you just live with Jessica in my heart? And so as this is happening while I'm seeing them work on me and like the reactions, there was a lot of pain. You could, boy, though, it was not the same before what happened next happened. I was thinking, I really wish there was a place inside of her that I could stay. And all of a sudden, I could feel like everything that everyone was feeling to an acuteness, and I was seeing in a different way. I was seeing through Angie's eyes, and I could feel the emotions that Angie was aware that was going on, and she was crying really hard. And I had asked her before I actually slipped in, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Look at how it's hurting everybody, you know." And this was as she's praying, so nobody paid any attention to the fact that she was actually talking to me and not like just praying. So I was seeing through her eyes. I could smell the ocean. I could feel everything acutely. I knew whose emotion was whose. My brother was pissed. He was still pissed from the night before. Dixie was sort of calm about it. Upset, but not too upset. Normally so. And then Angie was just feeling everyone's emotions because you had the emotion of my uncle who found me. You had the emotion of my aunts and uncles and my grandparents because we were at a family reunion where this took place. And then guilt. Overall, I felt the guilt, some of it my own, which isn't necessarily an angelic reaction, but I was being filled full of emotion in a way that I'd never experienced other people's emotion. And then all of a sudden, I was down in a place. Right about the time everything was getting overwhelming, I was down in a place. And in this place, there was just a beanbag chair, a little end table, and uh, a light. Later, I asked Angie, why a light? Um, and she said, because Jesus would have to read. We love reading in my family, so apparently Jesus would have to read. So this was her heart temple. The first place, I think, was like what she likes to call the sea, where I am actually speaking to you from now. She sees it more like a plane cockpit where, there's the driver, whoever's speaking through her, and then there's her always, and then there's another two maybe passengers in the back seat so they could slip in and do their talking because when we were doing the remembrances, one angel and the other, we would talk to each other through her. Yes, weird. It was very strange experience for her, I'm certain, but it is the way it works for her. And so as she was going through all of this, they were asking me about the place, and it was a little bit bigger than it used to be. It had a bigger television. It had a gaming system that was fairly current. It had a decent sized couch uh, that also flipped into a bed. Little things that we would need there if she came to visit, which she did. She did. Uh, the thing about my sister is that being very, very empathic sometimes was very stressful for her, especially after I passed. Um, it was really difficult for her. So there were times where she would come down in her form into her heart temple while she was sitting and playing, and she's like, "I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it anymore." She would be crying, and I would be like, "What aren't you doing?" I can't deal with her emotions anymore. My mom, she was having a very hard time because there was a whole lot of guilt set up into her about what happened to me. She's like, I just can't do it. And here I am sitting there. I'm like, come on, Angie, you can't just leave your body and not take care of it. What if mom needs you? And she was like, well, if you want it done, you do it. And so, yeah, if she would have gone catatonic otherwise. And I couldn't leave my mom with that. Not after everything she was feeling, after everything she was going through. Now, don't get me wrong, she did not do that sort of thing once she hit, teenage or adulthood, but this was a child we're talking about who didn't know how to deal with or process adult emotions and feelings of guilt, and she feels them as if they're her own feelings, even though they're not, you know. So it was a pretty difficult time, right? A pretty difficult time for my mom. She was already going through the baby blues, what they call the baby blues. That's postpartum depression, with with Anna, and she'd made a decision to get her tubes tied, cut, cauterize, something she hadn't really wanted to do because she wanted a sixth child. So there was a lot of adult complex emotions going on with my mother uh, that Angie couldn't process because she was a child. But, as she got older and was an adult, she could, or getting in teenage, she could process more and more complex emotion. So whenever she came down there, it was just to play, and it wasn't like, I'm not going back like she did when she was a child. Um, and she would remember none of that until later, till we're talking, because she didn't. Do you remember every moment when you were 6 years old? Like, or the way you processed grief, or what you did when, like, when you were upset or angry at someone or something? Uh, she certainly didn't. It had been covered over with, uh, learning to become a woman, which was around 11-ish is when she really started. All the chemicals and stuff were changing. She had boobs and butt overnight, Uh, but those things will cover over some of the childhood stuff that are very real happenings and very real occurrences, but you may not actually remember them because they seem to have no bearing on you as an adult. Um, so the angels wanted to know, like what's it like inside. So she's like, "Well, come on in," you know. And so they went in, and that was just the beginning. It was just one room, and but it was bigger than it had been. But they found a door, like a little door, as little green door, probably about her height. And they're like, "What's in there?" I said, "I don't know. Open it up, see what's in there." And inside was just a room, empty. It was it was some of the places that she actually hid, but we didn't really use that room much We just sort of stayed together whenever she came down and drank. So it was like a room, I think, that was meant to be her bedroom, and that's what they thought too. And she said, "But I don't need it." It was like, how about let's start making rooms for some of you guys. And as she did that, Mirrodin, like her first spirit guide, she had Mirrodin and Jesua. Mirrodin started like getting the details, and Jesua, as a carpenter, would do the building. So Mirrodin would make up the contracts, what they want, what the angel wanted, and then they would follow through with those contracts. And